Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rumors versus Facts, the UGA Sports Recruiting Show. I'm your host, Rodney DeBulsi. I'm joined by Lance McCurley and Jed May. Trent Smallwood will be with us very shortly. We appreciate all of you joining us on our abnormal Thursday at 8:30 instead of Monday at 8:30. Last week we had to put it off because of the Monday night game, and we just started thinking about it. We're like, look, if we do it again on Monday night when we just had a show on Thursday, there's a lot that needs to happen between Monday and Thursday. So let's move it to Thursday again. And it worked out for pretty much everybody's schedule, except, of course, that slack ass Trent Smallwood who, I got to coach my kids. Like, he's got some family he has to spend time with. I don't understand it. He's just not dedicated. We're just going to have to throw him to the wolves. But we appreciate all of you joining us. Holy crap, ton of people joining us. I guess everybody wants to hear about the latest with Caleb Downs, or do we want to go straight to Isaiah Gibson?
I think the people want
Caleb Downs.
It's what got to give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. Caleb Downs. There are reports that he is in Athens. I say reports. There's scuttlebutt. There's rumor. There's innuendo that he is in Athens. That he is being moved in. You guys are closer to school age than I am. If Caleb Downs, who went to the portal yesterday, were to pick the University of Georgia, can he still get in for spring practice? Can he move in? From what I understand, drop ad is over. What do you do? How do you get him in?
That's what every thread on the board has been about. And honestly, like all that, the technicalities and stuff, I don't fully know. But what I do know is that Kirby Smart is going to get it figured out. And I think that's, at the end of the day, is really all that matters. Like when Georgia starts practicing, middle of March, whenever they start for spring, if Caleb Downs does pick Georgia, he is going to most likely be there. So that's all that matters in the end, whether it's an exception. Like I've seen stuff where the president has to sign off on a week-long exemption or whatever. Like there's all kind of stuff out there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be figured out. If Caleb Downs wants to be here, Kirby Smart will figure it out. As bad as he felt about missing on the first time, Kirby's not letting some academic red tape screw this up again. So it'll get figured out if that indeed is the decision he's going with.
I'm going to bank off what Jed said, and I don't think there's a better duo in terms of like coach and president than Kirby Smart and Jared Moorhead. Jared Moorhead, he supports Kirby Smart and all he does, and I think that, like Jed said, if Caleb Downs really wants to come in and play spring ball at Georgia, whether it happened within the next 48 to 72 hours, I think that Moorhead and Smart will get that done.
And now here's the thing. Look, you can take independent study classes. You can do mid-semester classes. You can do online classes. It's going to get done. And I have it. I was asking you guys kind of because you're closer to it and you know more about the whole drop ad thing, I remember I had to do a drop ad, and this is, in the 1850s when I was back in school and going to a professor in the class. We were a week past drop ad, and I was able to get in. So
you were
it can be done. So
you were on the quarter system, weren't you?
I was on the quarter system. Shut up. It was like it was 100 years ago. And right as I left, they put it on semester. So I dated myself there. But of course, I was also in Myers Hall, which is now the honors area. And so Robert Peel in here, we were both there. So I can say I was in Myers Hall. Now it wasn't honors then, but I'm not going to say that.
Hey, and our own Dave McMahon too. So
yeah, hey, dude, Dave McMahon was there as well. Dave's my boy. So my point being, Caleb Downs. I know everybody's talking about the in-house, in-home meeting with Ohio State. Have you guys heard about that? And give me your thoughts on the Ohio State coming to visit him.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lance.
I've been following all these people that tweet all these flight trackers, from Ohio, from Columbus to Lawrenceville. But I mean, I'd heard that too. And, Ohio State's trying to make a big push here because, I mean, it's been rumored even before, Caleb Downs entered the portal, even after Saban retired, that, he's probably going to come to Georgia. He's probably coming to Georgia. And, I think that Ryan Day and his staff probably saw that and took it upon themselves to, make one last, kind of push like Georgia did a couple of years ago. But I mean, this is kind of do or die time now if he wants to, play spring ball. So I think that I don't know if there's any traction there at all, but I think that it's a thing you have to do if you really want this kid, for at least speaking for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be stupid not to go and home with him because, again, just like Georgia, their relationships with that staff are there. Tim Walton, Ryan Day, those guys. So they know the Downs family, and they I don't want to say maintain that relationship, but they know each other going back to his recruitment. So yeah, you don't go down without a fight, but I just think all signs have pointed to Georgia from the beginning. And, Radia did that story yesterday on looking at what Caleb Downs has said about Georgia in the past. And even quotes from when he committed to Alabama were, yeah, it's a chance to play for Nick Saban. It's Saban. Oh, well, yeah, Travaris Robinson has recruited me since freshman year, I think he said. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense to go in the portal. Yeah, it makes sense that Georgia would be the place the relationship with Kirby Smart. He talked about Will Muschamp, who isn't in the same role but is still going to be around. Travaris Robinson's there. I wouldn't be shocked if he at least knows Dante Williams in passing. So the defensive back coaching staff that Georgia has is still probably the best in the country with everybody they've got there now. And it's close to home. His parents I'm sure they were at the Alabama games too, but it's easier for his parents to get there. And it just, all the signs kind of add up to Georgia making a lot of sense.
Well, I was asking you about Ohio State, but I'm glad you made the case for Georgia there. That's exactly it. And let's talk about Georgia real quick. And I apologize for the dogs running around. I put on the board, and it's been we've had 20,000 people view it. I said he's coming to Georgia. I was just flat out. I know that there were just discussions about Ohio State. I know that there were the whole people were getting nervous about that. I said it this morning before I even heard about the fact that they might have an in-home with him. That look, I can't say it's a done deal, but it's as done as it can be. I would be stunned. I have it on great intel that Caleb Downs will be playing at the University of Georgia in 2024. The reason I was asking about the drop ad thing is because to me it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to wind up at Georgia. And to me, the bigger question is not where's he going, but when can he get here? And we've seen people talking about, I saw him in Athens. He's enrolled already. That's been the number one rumor. There were rumors last night that he moved in. I'm like, guys, he just went into the portal yesterday. I doubt he's going to be in Athens last night. But I can see him being in Athens today because, again, if you're going to a professor saying, look, I really want to be in your class. I need to be in your class. I can start today. I'm already enrolled. And I know people have been checking the school directory. That's not a guaranteed way to find out if a kid's here. You can. When I was in school, you had no choice, and your numbers were in there, and you could get anybody's number and call them up. The smarter, when you became an upperclassman, you knew to put a fake number in there if you didn't want anybody calling you. So, if you're Eric Zier, your number was listed in the student directory, and people would go get it and hassle the hell out of you. But until you learn not to put your number in there. But now the coaches can kind of hide stuff like that, so you don't always see it. Oh, look, I got Trent on here too. Let me add Trent real quick. But we found ways around that, and we found the kind of hidden directory, and we've looked into it. I don't see him in that yet, but my point is, if there are rumors coming from students that, hey, we saw him on campus, it's definitely possible. But I fully 100% expect him to come to the University of Georgia. Now, if something were to change at the last second, hell, crazier things have happened. But let's get Trent's thoughts on it because I'm 100% positive he's supposed to be coming to the University of Georgia, and he's not going to come alone. I've put up a couple things there in the chats. There are a couple other guys that might wind up at Athens too, and we'll talk about them real quick. But let's get Trent Smallwood. Trent's the man with the scoop. He always has been. Trent's thoughts on Caleb Downs now that he finally got his ass over here to talk a little Georgia recruiting.
Sorry, 12-year-old basketball takes a lot out of you. But, yeah, I mean, Caleb, I think it's been since Saban, the news that Nick Saban news came out, it makes sense from a scheme standpoint. He doesn't have to go learn a new defense. He's basically stepping into the same defense in the same role. And, everything we've heard is Georgia is the place to beat, and I don't think that's changed. It hasn't changed since Saban retired, and it still remains that way as of whatever time it is tonight, 8:40. So I think you're going to see Caleb Downs enrolled at Georgia, and I think he's going to play right next to Malachi Starks in 2024. And like you said, there's a very good chance a couple other guys on that 2 deep on the defensive side of the ball are could be coming with him. And now that I wouldn't put a stamp on it and say that's a done deal, right? Because they're not in the portal. But there is a lot of chatter behind the scenes that as soon as Downs, kind of announces his decision, there's going to be a couple others follow suit.
That's the thing is the Caleb Downs chatter started before he was in the portal. People go, well, it's tampering. It's tampering. If you reach out to the player, yes, it is absolutely tampering.
And they got to remember who his dad is. So, I mean, his dad it was probably contacting coaches and just, getting a feel of where it's at. Or, these guys have agents like we talked about last weekend or representatives, we call them. So, but yeah, like you said, I feel Caleb Downs coming to Georgia and on the other side of it, if he brings a couple guys with him, I can tell you that they're definitely in a position of need on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't always have to talk to the player. You can talk to the player's father, or the player's father can reach out to you saying, hey, if my son were to go into the portal, what do you think? Do you have room for him? Do you have a spot for him? Would you be interested?
Look, could you?
They also have They also have agents. Agents. I mean, you have agents for coaches who shop their coach around long before he's fired or long before he's hired.
You remember back in August when we're talking about dadgum, Kirby's missed on the top safety in the state of Georgia 2 out of the last 3 years, and now he's liable to have all 3 on the same team.
Yeah.
Just how it changes in 4 months. That's why I say you never doubt Kirby. That's the reason why he don't burn relationships, number one. And you don't doubt him because he's the best there is at closing, and he's the best there is at maintaining and keeping relationships.
I am not saying that I have this tweet pre-written. That would be unethical and yeah, I absolutely have it pre-written. I was going to try to lie through that, but I couldn't get it out there. I would choke on the coffee. Georgia could have All-American safety Malachi Starks in the backfield. They could also have All-American safety Caleb Downs in the backfield. You could have number 1 safety, as you point out, KJ Bolden from Buford as a true freshman. You could have Ellis Robinson, number 1 cornerback, as a true freshman. You could have Humphrey, 5-star safety, 5-star cornerback up there. You have Dalen Everett, who started 13 games for the University of Georgia. You have Aguero, who was the number 5 safety when Caleb Downs was the number 1 safety. So of the top 5 safeties in America, you would wind up with number 1 and number 5 to go with also number 1 in 2024. That secondary class, I mean, Jed, how do you throw on that? How do you run on it?
Yeah, and that's a great – you talk about running on it because Caleb Downs, I mean, look, you got his bio pulled up there, Roddy. He led Alabama with 107 tackles, which I think I was looking at this yesterday. Like, a freshman hasn't done it ever, or a true freshman hasn't led in tackles ever, and I don't know. It's some kind of crazy, just ridiculous stat that's up there.
Hasn't led since 1970.
Okay, that's what it was. So it's
the first Alabama freshman to lead the team in tackles since 1970. His 107 tackles were the most by a tied freshman in the last 50 plus years.
So I mean, he's a guy who helps you tremendously in the run game too. And we talked about throughout the year it was okay. Georgia's the run defense, and sometimes it was guys in the secondary, not taking the right angles to the edge, whatever. Caleb Downs helps tremendously in that area as well. I mean, he's a all-around he's everything you want a safety to be. So, with him and Malachi Starks playing next to each other, you've got 2 guys who, in all likelihood, would be first-round picks in back-to-back years in the same defensive backfield, which is just ridiculous.
And this is on top of us talking about Ellis Robinson's the best cornerback Kirby's ever recruited. And I mean, you're liable to have all these guys like on the field at the same time. And you know how I think it is cool how Kirby he talks about getting the best players on the field. last year they did it against Missouri. They shifted Lassiter inside, play some star. I'm interested to see if there's any packages, come this year if Caleb and Malachi, you bring in the athleticism of like KJ Bolden to play, and you're going to have. I mean, just imagine. I think you could have up to 5 first-round picks in that secondary on the field at the same time. Eventual.
Think about this too for the people that don't think that UGA Good's Gwinnett County kids. When you have KJ and Caleb back there, that's 2 JUCO kids right there in the same backfield. One from Buford, one from Mill Creek.
Hey, maybe that starts a
trend. 7-on-7 team. Yeah. I believe they're on the same 7-on-7 team too. KJ and Caleb.
Yeah.
Damn you, DJD podcast. That's good. I'm having a hard time imagining KJ Downs and Stark in the secondary all at the same time. But again, to your point, Ellis Robinson is really good. And everyone craps on Dalen Everett, and it bugs me to no end. And, okay, part of it was that was my pick of all that secondary class when they came in. I'm like, getting Dalen Everett at the last second away from Clemson to me was like a huge get. And I think that he, Humphrey was in that same group. Singletary's in that same group, but he was the one that started. And that was I was like, hey, I was right. So part of it is me trying to be right, but part of it is the fact the kid started 13 games. And
I think Dalen was the most physically gifted one out of all of them, ready to play day one from a physical standpoint. Out of all of them, Humphrey had some work to do. Humphrey's probably the best cover corner of them all, but physically, I think Dalen just surpasses that, and I think that's the reason why you've seen him on the field a lot more early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, are you going to throw against Kamari Lassett?
Exactly.
Are you going to throw against Tyke Smith? You're going to throw against, hey, we got Malachi Starks over the top here. Let's not go that way. Let's not go where Javon Bullard's going to be. So by default, you're going to pick on one guy, and that's where you're going to go. And he was thrown into the fire. And I'm telling you, Dalen Everett in year 2 as a starter, he's going to be a badass. And we're not talking about who's going to replace him on the other side. And you're right. Julian Humphreys is huge. Daniel Harris is big. Some of the other guys could have been here. AJ Harris, who transferred. I think that as much as you guys remember, what was about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, all we could talk about was on the board the number of Georgia guys that were in the transfer portal. What the hell's happening? The end of an era. You lost the SEC championship game by 3 points. This isn't happening at Alabama. This isn't happening at any other school. But, of course, they were still in the playoffs, and they hadn't lost their game yet. Why is this happening at Georgia? What the F is going on? And now Alabama is imploding. That carcass is being picked over by the vultures and the rats. It is. The rest of the conference is feasting on Alabama right now.
The one time Georgia fans can look up and say, thank you, Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And I get it. It sucks. It just shows how easily you're replaceable. But, I mean, it's there is no mercy for Alabama because of their run of dominance. And let's call it what it is. You have the best coach in the history of college football. You have the program that's won the most titles. And when there is blood in the water, Lane Kiffin is sitting in Tuscaloosa interviewing kids as they go on the portal pretty much. Texas is looking, Ohio State is looking, Georgia's looking. And we can talk about some of the other guys who aren't in the portal yet. Because when you hear from your sources that this guy might go into the portal, and I mean, what was it? Caden Proctor entered the portal. Everybody already knew where the hell he was going.
Yeah. Back to his home state.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the hell where Vandegrift was going before it ever happened. So again, it's not the players that are always been it; it's their agents. Coaches have agents. Players now have agents. Families, friends, high school coaches. I know Lance does a great job reaching out to high school coaches all the time. He's got a great relationship with a ton of them. I know you do as well, Trent. And a lot of times they tell you stuff. Hey, I spoke to my kid. He's going to go in the portal Thursday. And you guys go to the vault and say, look for so-and-so to be in the portal on Thursday. Here's where he's looking to transfer to. It just happened. So there's going to be some more in there. And again, I wonder, does Georgia have room for all these guys?
I mean, well, it's what camp or August 1st or whatever, and there's a lot of time for guys after spring practice to hit the portal. And that's just whether you're bringing in a bunch of transfers or not, that's expected just because that's how college football is. But it's going to be the nature of the beast. I think a lot of these guys get transferred out, especially at positions where they're bringing in these transfer guys.
You know, the one wacky thing that Alabama is basically screwed in this whole situation is they made the playoffs. Nick Saban retires. SEC teams are done basically in conference stuff. Now they got 30 days to transfer, and now they can't land anybody from the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're basically going to be a Big 12 or a Big 10 team next year if from transfers, because they've lost their whole secondary. I think they got like 3 secondary players left. I mean, they're even losing guys that just signed. So that it is. I mean, it's going to be bad. Now on the offense side of the ball, if you can trust Jalen Milroe, or if he's even the quarterback come next year, they'll have most of their offensive parts. I know they lost Proctor, but a lot of the offense guys have stayed. But the defense, the defense is gone.
No, you're right. It's just the timing of it. Hey, the transfer portal's closed. Coach retires. Oh, transfer portal extends for 30 days for Alabama players. They can all transfer out, but they can't get anybody in because it's done. So it's a one-way trip, pretty much.
Everybody but Dabo Swinney's just sitting out there just waiting.
You got to think about how lucky Hugh Freeze is too, man. Jeez.
Yep.
I mean, to me, the storyline of that entire season was rushing 2. Why did Auburn rush 2? That changed the course of the playoffs, and now it's all about Saban retiring. And poor Michigan, hey, we won the title. Nobody cares. Saban retired.
Less than like 48 hours later, too.
Freeze could have beat him and sent him in retirement right then, because it would have been over.
And you would have been able to say that you ended Saban.
Yeah.
They would have built a monument to Freeze on Toomer's Corner immediatly because you broke him.
It's really Freeze's fault that Alabama's in the situation they are now, because they could have hit the portal right after that game, or because that would have been the last game. Then they would have hit the portal and they wouldn't have been in the playoffs, and maybe they wouldn't have been in the situation. So,
hey, it's always Auburn's fault, but
I hate it for them.
Anyway, so we'll talk real quick about. I know this is a bit early and a bit. We didn't talk about this before we started getting on the show. I mean, of course, our show prep, folks, is hey, everyone shows up at 8:28. We go on at 8:30, and sad to say that we give it less than 2 minutes thought here. There are rumors running around that Jaheim Otis might go into the portal.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, he is. I mean, you could argue probably more at a position of need even than Caleb Downs is. Like, they would have figured it out at safety. But if you had a guy like Otis, I mean, what is their site have him listed at 6'5", 320? So probably he is that 0 tech, nose tackle, maybe play some 3 tech. Just another body to give you. I don't want to say he's just a depth piece, but he's another guy to rotate in and out. Because Trent, I think you've said this a couple of times. Nazir Stackhouse. Not that he's not good, but he wore down from playing so many snaps. Yeah. So you got another guy to rotate in there, give Stackhouse a break, give
if you made Jordan Davis play 47 snaps per game, he would be just laying on the side of the road. I mean, there's just no way. So a nose tackle don't need to be playing 40 something snaps per game. You split up, for them to be effective, they need to be mid-20s. Into the upper 20s at most, and I think that's where I think, like you said, he wore down and he didn't have no help at that position.
My man, Otis, damn it, Dogfather. I'm trying to be serious. I talk Alabama, Georgia football potential transfers, and you got me cracking up over here. Yeah, you're right. That would be a big get, and the other one, contemplating might be a possibility. Keon Keeley.
Yeah, which again, edge, defensive end, whatever you want to call it, is probably, at least at the start of this portal cycle, was more of a position of need even than safety was. So again, that's another guy when you talk about adding to that room, whether it's Marvin Jones is obviously gone, it's Chaz Chambliss, it's Damon Wilson, it's Gabe Harris, Sam Mpemba. It's just one more guy to rotate in and out. A guy who I didn't play much, if at all, last season, so he's a little bit more of an unknown in terms of how he would produce at the college level. But
I don't think he played a snap according to their site.
He's a 5-star, 6'6", 245, if you want to round it off, a good size. So, and then someone mentioned, that could free up Michael Williams to play more at Jack. If you put, there's a lot of different things you could do if you brought Keon Keeley in. So, him and Otis adding two guys like that to the defensive front along with Caleb Downs would just be, you couldn't have dreamed a better scenario for Georgia this offseason in terms of adding guys than what that would be. It's just somebody would have given Kirby that script and it'd be like, no, it's not real. But it's very possible now.
It's gonna be fun when this 30-day window closes, and then Michigan, he leaves, and then everybody just picks apart that roster for the next 30 days.
Yeah, hey, let's pull up the Michigan roster and go shopping. Let's see who the guys that we want.
Which one by position stats? Sector, which one produced the most?
We'll feel bad for them, these Georgia players. Lower on the depth chart because you're going to be dismissed here in about a week.
Well, that was the point. Some people are saying Georgia's at 89 scholarships. And the reason I kind of mentioned that about the transfer portal, weeks ago, Georgia's every time we said there would be 10 to 15 transfers from Georgia. What I had been told was 10 to 20. And that was from connected sources. It said 10 to 20. I'm like, okay, well, what I'm looking at on here from the number of guys who didn't play a whole lot, I said 10 to 15. Then we started seeing some guys transfer that it wasn't just about playing time. There were guys that you kind of expected to stick around. You didn't expect Dumas Johnson to transfer,
Marvin Jones.
Yeah. AJ Harris told you twice he wasn't going to.
Yeah.
My point is, so basically you wound up with 19 scholarship guys, 4 walk-ons, preferred walk-ons go into the portal. After spring practice, we could definitely see even more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the giddiness of the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, all the 3 wide receivers, the on again, off again relationship with the quarterback, long snapper, McLeod from South Carolina, all the different guys, be like, oh my God, I can't believe we lost so-and-so. I go back to what we said we said 2 things last week we got a deal on. One was if there's going to be a lot of movement in the portal and you're looking at who is recruiting well out of high school, Kirby Smart is winning both of those. He's got the number 1 recruiting class out of high school, and he's getting some of the best possible prospects. It's not big names like what you're seeing at Ole Miss, but the fact you went and got Trevor Etienne, you got London Humphreys, you got Colby Young, Michael Jackson's kind of a question mark, but again, if Kirby's getting him, have faith in that man. And now if you're getting Caleb Downs, from everything I've been told, you got the big names. You got the number 1 defensive player on the University of Alabama. You got Florida's best running back, maybe their best offensive weapon. That's pretty damn good. And last year you took the best wide receiver from Mississippi State and the best wide receiver from Missouri. Now you could add Keeley and Otis. I mean, damn. Again, if college football is going, everyone wants to pull out their hair about roster management. We said last week, trust Kirby Smart and his staff. They will maximize it, to come out on top, and so far they have. The other thing we said was, I asked all of you point blank, if Caleb Downs goes in the transfer portal, if Justice Haynes goes to the transfer portal, where would they go? And none of us said he'd go to Georgia.
Yeah, I was in the same mode as I was with KJ Bolden, just because Caleb's recruitment was, not to say Georgia wasn't a serious factor, but it always kind of felt like it was going somewhere else. And Trent, I think we've both said on the board, like I think Ohio State finished second the first time around, which is, if you're an Ohio State person, it gives you reason to be hopeful now. So
finish second again.
But no, it's looking like they're going to be second again. But so it's I don't know. It makes a lot of sense, but it's just one of those things where you're in. You believe it when you see it mode, and we haven't seen it yet, but now everything that we've heard over the past, I don't know how 24, 36 hours or whatever, everything is pointing that way. So it's time to believe, I guess.
And I don't think we, when we had this conversation before, we didn't know Robinson was going to be at Georgia, coming over from Alabama. So I think that is one that it was really Saban, Robinson for Downs. And when Saban's gone and Robinson leaves, and Alabama fought like heck to keep him because of Caleb Downs. When Georgia got him, I think that was the nail in the coffin.
Well,
that's why. Go ahead, Lance.
You look back, like I was just talking about a few minutes ago, right before Trent got on. It's like all this was kind of like a rumor last. I guess Saban had been retired for at least 24 hours back when we had the show, or a little bit more, and then it was a rumor, and then we get the news Saturday that T-Rob joins, and then you get the news Sunday that hey, Downs could be coming here, but also T-Rob is like interviewing with Alabama. And then Monday, Georgia keeps T-Rob. And then I think this Downs realist stuff, it really started to take form and kind of shapeshift into, more than just a rumor. And then he finally enters the portal. I don't know if it was today, or I know we submitted his paperwork yesterday, but it's really started to kick off within like the last little bit of 72 hours.
You're right. And I want to, I went on the board Saturday because it was a Thursday we did our show. Friday, I think we had the reaction show with Travaris Robinson. On both shows, I said, I think if Caleb Downs says the portal will go to Ohio State. The whole thing with Josh Downs, his older brother, just don't know. I got word Saturday morning that the hire of Travaris Robinson was a massive change to the calculus. Okay. And I went on the vault, and this is why you need to be a member of UGAsports.com. You go to the vault. And I said, look, I don't want to get your hopes up, folks, but I've said twice in the last 48 hours that Caleb Downs isn't coming to Georgia. I retract that statement. Didn't say that he was. It said that I was wrong, and that the hiring of Travaris Robinson, T-Rob, is a game changer in this thing. And to your point, you were right. Then Sunday that we heard that he was interviewing for the defensive coordinator spot. Monday morning, again, the same people that tell me Caleb Downs is coming to Georgia are the ones that told us before anybody else that Travaris Robinson was not going to Alabama. We reported it at UGAsports.com hours before everybody else did. Hell, we reported in the morning. It was a late afternoon that everyone said it. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay. And then remember the story came out that Caleb Downs hasn't decided whether or not he's going to go into the portal. And we're like, well, yeah, he may not. But if he does, Georgia's prepared. And we reported that at the vault at UGAsports.com. So now my sources who've been right about so many things say, look, he's coming to Georgia. And so we are prepared for when that happens. Real quick, I want to talk about when I was mentioning that there would be some Georgia players who would transfer. If they do transfer after spring, they cannot go to an SEC school and play right away. Now, that is an SEC rule. Of course, all the rules are being challenged in the courts, and all the rules are being found to be the NCAA and the SEC, and everybody's losing in the courts. The players are winning everything. But that was the reason Caleb had to make a decision quickly. He could wait until after spring, but if he wanted to go to an SEC school, Trent, if you want to explain that, I know you got your finger on the pulse there.
Yeah, I mean, after this 30-day window, they get 30 days open transfer portal. They can transfer within the SEC. Alabama doesn't get benefit in that of getting SEC transfers because it's past the deadline. When the spring portal opens, that interconference is no longer open. So Alabama can only take transfers from other conferences, just like Georgia can. And if anybody likes to transfer out of Georgia, they'll have to go to a different conference. So it'll be ACC, Big 10, Big 12. They won't be going to the Pac-12, I don't think. But yeah, you'll be they'll have to go out of conference. Unless some rule changes between now and then, there will be no interconference transfers beyond this 30-day window for Alabama.
Hey, so I mean, I saw somebody on the board said, "Look, Alabama got Tresman Marshall and Jermaine Burton. Georgia gets Caleb Downs. Seems like a fair trade."
That's not
Yeah.
fair.
And it's amazing. I was thinking about
It's like trading a double-A and a triple-A player for the best pitcher in
it.
baseball.
Feels so much like NFL free agency, just in the sense of like, man, you are getting it's like when like the Falcons sign a guard. Oh man, this guy is coming in to start at right guard. Georgia is getting Caleb Downs, like you said, Trent, to start at safety alongside Malachi Starks. It's just a plug and play thing, I guess, where you get these guys to fill holes. It's so much of a different feel, because even when you're talking about transferring within SEC teams, when Georgia got Maurice Smith, was it 2016, I guess. It was, he carved out a role and whatever. Now you are getting guys who are starting day one. It's such a different system than it was even 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, again, I all the people in Alabama who were like, "Oh yeah, Jermaine Burton, great, came here, fantastic," and then they're like, "Caleb Downs, how could you do this?" I'm like, "Come on, man." And Georgia fans, same way. If you're crapping on one, and open arms for the other, just accept that they're all doing what they think is best for them.
It's how college football is.
Yeah.
Is now. Guys can transfer for what A.D. Mitchell left. He wrote that Players Tribune thing, and he said, when I was hurt and I realized how much it hurt me being away from my daughter, I decided to go back to Texas. Everybody's got their own reasons for transferring. And sometimes it is spurred by a coach retiring or being fired in this instance. And sometimes it's just what a guy wants to do. But bottom line is, it's the world that college football is in. It's what's been created. And it hits every team the same. Like all the Alabama fans who celebrated, like you said, Roddy, getting Jahmyr Gibbs and Jermaine Burton and Tresman Marshall. And I think Jamison Williams was a transfer, I think.
Henry Toto, Tennessee.
Yeah.
the guy started for them.
This is what you get. This is eventually it hits everybody both ways at certain points. And Alabama fans are really kind of feeling feeling what Georgia fans felt when Jermaine Burton, who helped you win a national championship, left. A.D. Mitchell helped you win 2 national championships, left. It hits everybody. Eventually.
We had just got done talking on the board about Georgia Clemson next year. Can KJ Bolden step in and play right away, because Georgia does lack on safety depth. Javon Ward left. And my response was, you're probably going to see Dan Jackson start that first game, and then eventually maybe KJ steps in and plays a little more throughout the year, but you're probably going to see Dan. How Caleb comes in and just totally, it just steps into the right position. That it's at the right timing, the right position, and it just makes life easier for probably makes Kirby sleep better at night if this does come to fruition.
Hey, Dogfeather, get that bag of crystals, sit around East Campus Village. Let us know when you see Caleb Downs moving in. See if he's got that the new key. See if Coach Coop, who's being sought after by Alabama, they're trying to get Coach Cooper, one of the best non-position coaches at Georgia, director of recruiting, or I don't know his exact title, but he is one of the higher ups in the Georgia recruiting office. They're trying to hire him away, which makes perfect sense. He's really talented. Kids love him. If I'm Alabama and I'm bringing a coach from Washington who doesn't know the Southeast, then I'm trying to get as many guys as I can that know that area.
Raise.
Yeah, he should, and maybe need to get a big raise. He does have a buyout. Now, will Alabama do the buyout? It's very interesting. So we'll see. I want to go back real quick. One of the comments was, Alabama coach leaves, 30 days of their kids going to the transfer portal. What if Lincoln Riley leaves? Now you see the same thing at USC. Washington coach, there's nobody left. You know, when DeBoer left, come here, Washington's been picked over. I mean, it's just a dry carcass, you know.
You know what's crazy? And they talked about if Harbaugh leaves, Michigan could go after Brian Kelly at LSU. And then now you're talking about a whole crazy situation coming back to the
And
SEC.
I do want to point out that when we say Alabama can't get people in Michigan and anybody whose coach leaves, they can't get them. Kids that are in the portal now still can commit to those schools. You know, you can still do that, but it's not like it's it extends the entire portal 30 days and other guys can go into the portal from other schools. They basically have to go and take what's been picked over in the portal, who's left. You know, there's not a Evan Stewart left. There's not a Walter Nolan left. You know, there's not all those quarterbacks that hopped into the portal. So it can get to be very slim pickings, if you will, if Michigan loses Harbaugh here in the next day or two, all of a sudden, yeah, it's wide open 30 days for their guys to go into the portal. And now they're looking around trying to find somebody. So I didn't think that the spring transfer portal session would be quite as big as the fall one, just like with signing day. Signing day is over at first Wednesday in December. When the one rolls around here in February, I mean, it's probably just be another day.
Yeah.
We'll be on it, but I think the initial transfer window, it was where all the big action will take. But right now, to your point, with all these other schools, they may be looking, and there'll be some Georgia players saying, hey, let's I'm going to take my talents to Michigan because there's a starting spot there. I might go to LSU. So
Can't go to LSU.
And sit out a year. You know, you never know.
But when we're talking about the spring, I think the only thing that the spring's good for is to get into spring practice, noticing you're not making any ground or up on the depth chart through spring practice, and you're like, well, there's 4 studs in front of me at safety. I'm gonna have to go elsewhere. And I think that's the one good thing about the spring is looking at your
Thanks, John.
Having these transfers come in. Like the situation with Alabama, having these transfers come in, noticing there's a freshman All-American coming in. I can't compete with this. I'm going to have to go somewhere else. I think you'll start seeing some of those guys go at those positions, but it won't be nearly as big as what we just saw.
Paul Ahmed, is it Ahmed or Ahmed? My father's name was Ahmed. That's why I like that. All right. Oh, yeah. I guess we could talk about Juju Lewis.
Yeah. Speaking of things that, we've gone 45 minutes into the show and we haven't talked about the number one kid in the country reclassifying. Reclassified to 25 Monday or Tuesday. And Georgia was the first visit set coming out of that. It's going to be in Georgia February 3rd. And he's been in Athens a lot. He's saw I think 2 or 3 games in Athens last fall. And now it's just Georgia looks like the main competition. I think that seems pretty clear. Other schools are going to get involved, which with a guy of Juju Lewis's caliber, you should. But it seems like Georgia is the one, and we've heard that Georgia likes where they are. They like where they sit. They're in a good spot with the family. And before it was like, okay, he's got a 1.5 years or whatever before he can sign. Now it's sped up, right? He's going to be taking officials in the spring and summer and sign this year. So, I mean, I think Georgia's in a good spot, as good a spot as you can be with a guy who's not committed to your school. They've just got to keep building that relationship, get him on campus as many times as you can, and then you hope it's enough to pry him away from Lincoln Riley and USC in the end.
It is.
Yeah, a lot of these battles in 2025 were Georgia, Alabama, and now they've and I know Juju was Georgia, Alabama were both highly in the mix. Visited both schools a good bit. Then you talk about Justice Terry, and you talk about David Sanders, and you just go down the list, and a lot of them were Georgia, Alabama, and we talk about the transfer portal right now and how Alabama's losing a lot right now, but they've lost a lot of 25 commits already. most of them. And, it's just going to these battles that Georgia was once having starting to favor Georgia a lot more.
You talk about Jamie French, Zion Grady. I think there are 2 more names in 2025 that are decommitted.
Where they decommit from?
Alabama.
Who went to see him?
Kirby.
I'm just saying. I mean, if you're gonna tell the story, tell it right.
Yeah.
It's so, and it's amazing. We
get the timeline, because to me, Kirby. Somebody said it on the board perfectly. Kirby's playing by prison rules. I mean, he's shanking Alabama in the shower. Right in the side meats, just in there. Talk about the decommits and when he showed up with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, the morning Mason Short committed, Kirby was there about 11 a.m. in Evans, rolling up in the helicopter. And these guys, these like you said, Trent, there's so many of these battles that are Georgia, like Alvin Henderson, who was in Athens last weekend. Georgia and Alabama are 2 of the top contenders. Justice Terry Alabama was one of the main contenders to flip Justice Terry. Let's see who else was here. I mean, Travis Smith has been to Alabama. Bryce Davis had Alabama. There's even just last weekend, Saban retires on Wednesday or Thursday. Georgia gets the first visit of the post-Saban era for so many of these guys. Anquan Fegans was in Athens. Georgia and Alabama were 2 of the top contenders there. So, of these guys, a lot of them committed or signed to play for Nick Saban. And now that it's gone, it's a different evaluation of Alabama. I mean, it is. We talked about this on the live show when Saban retired, Roddy. It's not what these guys signed up for, I guess is the way to say it. They didn't sign up to play for Kalen DeBoer. And Kalen DeBoer is a great coach, and he'll do fine at Alabama. But a lot of these guys wanted to say, hey, I was developed by the GOAT, and now he's gone. And in the case of Caleb Downs, your position coach is gone. So it totally changes the calculus for so many of these guys, especially in 2025, where you've got so much time to continue to evaluate your options, feel things out, and make the best decision for you.
And this is the reason why you didn't want to forward Nick Saban as a head coach at Alabama, because no matter what Kalen DeBoer does next year, with the roster that he's losing through the portal, he's not going to be successful. Even if he goes 10-2, he's going to be the one to blame. If he goes 9-3, and just imagine if he goes 8-4 or 7-5, he's on the hot seat after year 1 when he was just coasting at Washington. So I think it's you just don't. It's hard being that guy right behind Saban, and it just shows how much tradition Saban's name, carried on the recruiting trail. It wasn't necessarily Alabama. Alabama's getting that, love for it, but it's Nick Saban, and it's kind of showing this. Nick Saban's name carried a lot of weight, and so does Kirby Smart's.
Well, in the wake of the retirement, you saw so many recruits post that famous picture of meeting with Saban in his office, and he's got that painting of, I think, Mark Ingram. Like, people were posting it like he had died or something, and that is just such a hallmark moment for so many of these kids. Is, man, I talked to Nick Saban in his office, and like it's the same picture over and over and over again. And like you said, Trent, the Saban mystique or aura or whatever, it's carried so much power for, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, since that dynasty really started going, 15 years. And now all that is gone now. And it's like you said, it sucks for Kalen DeBoer, because he's a good coach. He's done really well everywhere he's been to get to where he is now. But it's just an impossible situation to follow. It really is.
He's used to having like a 98th ranked defense anyway, so he'll be all right.
Lance, you mentioned French.
Yeah.
Oh, and your story about Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, didn't Kirby visited French, correct?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many. Yeah, he showed up in a timely manner.
Who's French for people that don't follow that closely?
French, I believe I would have. He's a safety or cornerback, defensive back. Sorry, I'm going to pull up his rival profile. Okay, so he's out of Mandarin. Sorry, I've up to my eyes and all this. Yeah, he's the kid out of Mandarin who, he's developed, a great relationship with Kirby Smart over the last couple of years, and he also played at the same high school that Carson Beck played at. So I mean, there's that connection there. And when Jed and I were kind of talking to him, just going back and reading both of the messages, he was kind of telling us the same thing that he was recruited by Dante Williams a couple of years ago, and he was also committed, and he was also recruited by Travaris Robinson. And then you look, and he decommits, and now he's trending more this way.
Yeah, this was the guy I talked to at IMG Academy last year when I went down to last summer when I went down to the junior thing, and he mentioned Georgia being in his top 5. Then he committed to Alabama about 2 weeks after that IMG trip, but Georgia was in his top mix there. But he was just now getting to know Georgia. He was not as familiar with Georgia, and being in that top 5 back then, that was back in June or July, and now having 2 guys that he's familiar with on staff, it becomes a lot more appealing. Having those relationships, and we've talked about it. Relationships are everything. Just look at what happened, and look at what's happening in college football right now, and it's everything. And so, he's gonna be one of Georgia's top priorities at wide receiver. He's really, really good. I mean, that kid's good.
I was getting him mixed up with another player, but I mean, it's still the same. It's still the same, type thing. I interviewed Chris Ewald Jr. and Jed and I both.
That's right.
Kid as well, and he's another 2025 DB, and he said the same thing about Coach Robinson. And this kid's legit too. We've got him as a 4-star.
He just decommitted from Michigan.
Yeah, out of shot. Like
he was Michigan when you interviewed him. He was committed. He visits over the weekend, and then you write your story the next day. He's decommitted, just like Mason Short did. My point. I don't mean to get too excited, but I'm saying Kirby's like, oh, hey, your coach may be gone somewhere. Come play here. Decommit. Look around. French decommits, Zion Grady decommits. They're losing tons of people, and Kirby's just showing up at their schools the next day going.
When you talk to a lot of these guys and you ask them about Kirby Smart, a lot of them say, yeah, Coach Kirby's not going anywhere. And I think with Alabama, there was always, I think Saban said this, parents and recruits have asked me, are you going to be here in 3 years, 5 years? And it was getting harder and harder for him to answer that. Yeah, just honestly and say, yeah, I'm for sure going to be here. And I don't know what the future holds for Kirby. It's I don't know if he's going to coach 4 years or 40 years, but I think it's easy for him to tell families, look, I'm at my alma mater. I built this into arguably the best program in college football. I've won 2 national championships already. Why would I go anywhere else? If I go anywhere else, it's going to be, retirement and fishing and golfing or whatever, so it's a different ability to sell stability, I guess, in Athens right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent some time. I mentioned the Kevin Wynn kid on the board out of Greene County. I've known him and his coach for the last few years. I cover them from a newspaper. I actually spoke to him in person after speaking to him on the phone. Kirby was up there in Greensboro. He's real familiar with the area. Got a lake house on Lake Oconee, but right in Kevin's hometown. But I was like, man, just how was that visit? And that day, several other D1 coaches have been there. I think Norvell was there that day. Lincoln Riley was there the next day, but he was like, dude, this was one of the coolest things, seeing him land on that, their field and see the helicopter. And then, he was like, it's kind of like the president, walking up to you and stuff like that. When you see the videos, whenever the president lands on the South Lawn, just walking up to you and, with a security, and then, comes and shakes your hand. And, he said that was one of the coolest feelings, he's ever had.
I mean, I'm sure we can get into a lot more of the specifics here. I want to touch on Trent's future cast, and I think this is pretty big. Elijah Griffin. That's a pretty big one there. Mason Short, like I said, was committed to Alabama. He just recently decommitted, the next day or the same day Kirby Smart is visiting him. Trent, you got him predicted to Georgia. You got Isaiah Gibson predicted to Georgia, which would be a big get. We have a story about him on the front page of UGAsports.com right now, talking about how Georgia's at the top of his list. And then again, Cortez Smith, also a big possibility. So Trent, you're throwing your weight around saying making those predictions.
Well, I mean, I would have made the prediction on Mason Court before all this happened. I think, I think he was leaning. He's visited Georgia so many times, and I think, I have a feeling that he was going to decommit from Alabama anyways. And I think that with the Nick Saban news, it just kind of, sped things up a little bit. And I don't think there's any school that's sitting in a better position than Georgia right now for sure. Isaiah Gibson, he visited last weekend, and he told me that, sitting in I've come to find out in this on this past visit that they put all these kids in positional meetings and, broke down film and, they compared. I said, "Well, did they compare you to anybody?" And he said, "Uzo Duribe compared me to Myles Garrett." And I just kind of, that I was like, that's impressive. I mean,
Damn.
But yeah, Isaiah Gibson he told me that Georgia is at the top of his list and he's ready to start, break it down. I said, you got any more visits planned? He said, well, I'm supposed to visit Florida this week, but I'm not going to take that visit. And then he's going to take an official visit to Georgia in the spring. So I think if Georgia, presses here, they're in great shape there. And then Cortez Smith, I think Georgia's been in a great position for a while for him. I think he's built a great relationship with, Georgia staff and, Georgia, trying to get some more of those offensive guards after taking all them tackles last class. And I think, Georgia set well for him for several months, but I just put one in.
That's also,
And Elijah Griffin, I didn't touch on him. That was back in November that I put his in. But I think Georgia's been the team to beat there for a long time. And you don't see that a lot of times with guys that are so high on the list or so highly rated, I guess you say, a team trying to stand out. But it's just unlike some other players that we've covered in the past that we've said, he just looks like he finds a way to not go to Georgia or not visit Georgia. It seems like he just finds ways to get to Georgia or to visit Georgia. And it's kind of like we talked about with KJ Bolden last year. I don't see any way that he doesn't go to Georgia. And at the end of the day, he did, based on his relationship. But he's another guy that it's going to be hard to knock Georgia off.
Yeah, we got an update with him from Jed. And I like where, even though Kirby Smart's in a room full of top players, I mean, it was a junior day. All these kids are there. Some of the best players in the nation, and Kirby Smart gets up in front of them. And Elijah Griffin repeated this, said verbatim, if you've got options, we've got options too. If you don't want to come here and work, then don't come here. I mean, basically, to me, that's an ultimatum. I use the word ultimatum in the headline, and some people said, "Oh, that's not an ultimatum." It damn sure is an ultimatum. It's come here, don't come here if you don't want to work. Okay, if it's not an ultimatum, it's a threat or it's a promise. So Kirby's out there just beating his chest, saying, "Look, we've got a ton of options." Without Saban in the picture, that's a big one. That's pretty big. And we're going to wrap up the show here pretty quick, but I want to go back to there's been a lot of people who joined midway through and they missed. Folks, if you joined and you saw it said 39 minutes or 40 minutes, the first 45 minutes of the show are about Caleb Downs. And I want to go back and kind of gift wrap it, if you will, with the show. Jed put together a good story. There's basically everything that Caleb Downs had said about Georgia over the past few years. And if you go back and read through it and you read all his comments going back to 2020, 2021, 2022, spring 22, July, I mean, just all the stuff that happened, that is a relationship that Georgia worked as very hard. They came close. And because they didn't burn any bridges, they didn't say anything nasty. Just like when KJ Bolden picked FSU and Kirby Smart sent him that paragraph talking about how I'm not mad at you. We're always here for you. We're going to keep recruiting you. Kirby Smart sees him after the SEC championship game, sees Caleb Downs, goes up and hugs him. Also saw T-Rob too.
Yeah.
Dabbed him up.
Well,
both of them are going to be here. I'm telling people saying, did you make your predictions? Yeah, I predicted that this morning at UGsports.com that Caleb Downs will be a Georgia Bulldog in the next 24 hours. He had a good relationship with T-Rob. T-Rob was looking for a job because Nick Saban's leaving. Kirby Smart's able to hire T-Rob. Will Muschamp steps back to a defensive analyst role. Alabama comes back after T-Rob to be the defensive coordinator, and he says, no, I'm going to stick with Kirby. A lot of people are trying to get Caleb Downs. He's going to wind up at Georgia. Elijah Griffin, as you say, I could see him getting there. Hell, Juju Lewis. When he committed to USC, everyone thought it's over. It's over. It's completely over. Hell, Juju Lewis is probably going to be at Georgia.
Well, and I've seen people say that clip after the SEC championship of Kirby's, he gives Downs a hug, like, oh, this is clearly tampering, and Kirby knew what was going to happen. It's not tampering. It's like you said, it's maintaining those. Like Kirby does that all the time. And for that matter, so do a lot of Georgia's coaches. They talk to, they see the guys that went to South Carolina or Florida or whoever, and just say what's up to them after the game. They don't make a whole recruiting pitch. They say, hey, good to see you. How's your family? Because they get to know these kids so well through their recruitments, especially a guy like Caleb Downs, who Georgia recruited for a year, 2 or 3 years. So this is why you do that. This is why.
It's funny how they say that one moment right there is tampering when Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes are in Athens about 10 days before Christmas and spending the weekend with players. I mean,
it's the maintaining relationships it's so much more important now than ever, because you don't know for sure, but if a kid signs with whatever school, you're like, there is a non-zero chance that I'm going to have to recruit this kid again. And so that's why you don't burn those relationships all the way till they sign. And in this case for Georgia, it looks like it's got a pretty good chance of paying off.
And with that, we will leave the show. Let's try to get back next Monday. If we could have one day off or a day to kind of catch up on it, maybe we'll be back next Monday. But stay tuned. Follow us on this YouTube channel. Follow us on this Facebook page, and follow us on these Twitter channels that you watch. I see a lot of people watching us on Twitter. I see a lot of people watching us on Facebook and YouTube. If we have a schedule change, we will mention it there. But ideally, we will be back next Monday at 8:30. There's a lot of updates that we didn't get to touch on, a lot of questions. But I get it. I understand it's all kind of built up around the Caleb Downs news, potential other transfer news, because he's worth it. I mean, if you go to Alabama and you're the first freshman to lead them in tackles since 1970, you're the first guy to have 107 tackles. For some first freshman to do that in 50 plus years, that's pretty damn impressive. If you can get an All-American of that caliber that Kirby Smart wanted. Kirby Smart fought so hard for KJ Bolden because he missed out on Caleb Downs. He wasn't going to let it happen twice. And now you're able to rectify the original sin, if you will. It's big. It's worth. We will do a reaction show when he announces. So if he announces here in the next 20 minutes, we'll be right back on here talking about it. But it's definitely worth it. And next Monday, we will have a lot more to talk about some of the other guys that Georgia's trying to add to this 2025, 2026 class. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if by then we have a 2027 one. And there'll also probably be some coaching stuff to talk about, because each one of these positions that opens up, you're going to hear a lot of Georgia coaches being named as possible candidates. So we'll have a lot to talk about next Monday, and we'll see you then. Take care.